Hello, my name is Donnie McNichol of Team Animation, and I'd like to talk to you about developing your personal leadership capability. In particular, I'm going to talk through a 4-step model that will help you to reflect on what it is that you would like to do to improve your capability and how to go about it. The model has, as I mentioned, it's got 4 steps. Step 1 is what do I want to achieve and why, getting clarity. The second are what are my development options. 3, how will I achieve this? And 4, how will I maximize the value from that? So we're going to go through and talk through each of those 4 steps. This is all taken from Project Leadership 3rd edition book that we published with Gower, and I'll provide some details of that at the end if it's of interest. So, Step 1, so you're going to need to ask yourself questions that are listed up here. What made me decide to lead projects? What do I enjoy about leading a project? So there's a number of questions. So this is just like in a project. You need to be clear about why you're doing the project. This is the same. It's treating your career like a project and being absolutely clear on what it is you want to achieve to allow you to plan it successfully. In some ways, you could almost look at this as kind of visioning stage. You're creating the vision for you. What is it you want to achieve? Where do you want to be? And so on. But you need to understand, and you need to be honest with yourself as well about your strengths and your weaknesses. You may have to ask others to help you with that. You may be able to go to your organisation and seek guidance on it. And many L&D HR departments will provide assistance for you in doing that. Speaking to peers and friends, doing it informal 360 is a very good way of doing it. And you thinking about how you would like to chart out your career. I'm doing this at the moment, coaching a program manager, and they're going through very much, we've started with what is it that they want to achieve, where do they want to be. So that is step 1. And you then need to think about, well, what aspects of your project leadership capability need to be developed. So you need to think about what exactly it is. Now, we've found this categorization useful. There are many ways of splitting things out, but is it a competence, how you do it, the knowledge, what you know, or skills, what you do. I'm very aware that competence is used in many different ways to describe in different ways. This is the way we've used it with a few different clients, so it's something for you to look at. Then you need to consider the time scale. I've mentioned to you, what is it you want to achieve by when? So reflect on what kind of leader you are now, what you'd like to be, let's say in 5 years' time. That's a good horizon for many people, but where they would like to be in terms of the role that they're doing, and then being able to work back and understand what it is they need to do and change in terms of the skills, knowledge, and the competence that they need to change. So again, think about it in those different layers and it build it up towards the 5 years. So that's step 1 complete if you've done all of that. Step 2 is you need to think about all of the options that are available to you for your development. So initially you might want to consider your learning style. Now you may well have heard of the Honey and Mumford model, which was based on work by Kolb about the distinct learning styles or preferences. So if you can understand this, you've got a real insight in yourself about how you learn best, because ultimately there's going to be a lot of learning based in this, as well as, of course, practice. So activists, theorists, pragmatists, and reflectors. Just let's take one of them, the activists. Activists needs to get their hands dirty on projects and get direct experience. They typically have an open mind approach to learning, involving themselves fully, trying new experience. So that's one particular learning style that someone could have. So you think, if that's your strength, you may want to then think, well, I can't do that all the time. You may have to look at different approaches like theorist, pragmatist, and reflector. So look through this. You may want to stop the video and have a little look at this slide in detail, and just think about the other approaches that you can take. Again, a sign of being a great project leader is being adaptable. So you could start by thinking about this now. You then can look at your own personal development preferences. We developed this model to map out what the different options are. So I developed this over a number of years working with different people in their development. And the 2 axes are the involvement of others versus the use of materials. And for me, it seemed like a pretty good way of distinguishing. Some people are down in the bottom right, so they like the lots of involvement of others and lots of use of materials, and that's typically training. You go along to a room, there's usually lots of stuff, interventions, knowledge imparted, but there's also lots of other people around to engage with. Some other people at the very opposite end, very much about reflective journals, giving a little bit of knowledge and material, but them going away and reflecting on it. So very different approach. You can have a look at this, where exactly you sit, and depending which quadrant you are as to whether you think your involvement of others is high or low, or the use of materials you think is high or low, you can look at the other options that are available to you. I'm sure you've heard the statistic about the 70-20-10, which typically says that most of the value comes from personal development, comes from actually applying it in real life situations. 20 comes from the feedback and involvement with others, and 10% comes from gaining actual new skills and knowledge. That's there is some foundation to these numbers, but actually without the 10% of new inputs, thoughts, ideas and so on, you wouldn't be able to apply that in the 70% in the real life project. So it's maybe, you can argue about the 70-20-10 rule or not, but ultimately you've got to remember, whatever you learn, you must find ways of applying. So these are different ways of bringing that knowledge in and then looking at trying to apply it. So that's step 2. Then step 3 says, how will you achieve this? Well, you've got to think about 3 broad things. You've got to then take all of that. So you've got to think about the experience. When am I going to get the opportunity, as we said, to apply this? What is how am I going to assess and understand the evaluation, where I am, where I want to be, and how you're going to assess your development. So you may well need to get input again from L&D and so on with that. And also the education, when am I going to get the input that I need around the materials and so on. And ultimately all those 3 come together in a development plan. So you have your opportunity to apply in a real life project, you have the opportunity to gain identify your needs and identify areas of greatest opportunity to improve them, and you've also got the education, the key points and ways of bringing it in. As you know, there are all sorts of avenues now. You may be watching this on the PM channel, which now provides videos, very different from 10 years ago. You can go on and you can be watching videos on almost any topic that you wish. So very fantastic ways of getting that information in. So this is about step 3, how you achieve it. And in making things happen, you've got to think about, well, if you are making those things happen, that you've got to think practically about what you're going to do. And there's typically 4 key activities in that. You've got to create your project leadership development plan. Could be very simple and basic. You may have a template from your organization to help you with that. You need to identify and engage your development team. What is your development team? Well, in the book we actually lay out who each of those people are. These are people around you who can actually help with your personal development, whether it is an L&D, a mentor, a peer, a team member, your boss working on it, your program manager if you're a project leader. There are multiple people that can help in your development. You just need to think about it and plan that out. You need to take control and plan, just like in a project. What am I going to have achieved by when? What actions do I need to take? What commitments and investments do I need to make? And then you need to keep in track, of course, like any good project, and checking that you're achieving what you set out to do. Step 4 is, if you go through all of that, that's fantastic, is you then need to think about how will I maximise the value from doing all of this. Well, if you're making a change or if you're getting promoted and you're looking to move on, it doesn't necessarily mean that because people move on or change, they don't necessarily fully, the term is used, transition, they don't make fundamental changes in themselves. So during the development phase, and often people are developing to take on new roles, to get more complex projects, to get a new job title. Many people don't actually fully transition. They carry on doing broadly what they were doing previously, but just in a new role. It gives them comfort because that's what made you successful in the past. So it needs to be challenged and supported, as we've said, to allow people to make these shifts. And fundamental is the awareness by the project manager, project leader, where they are and where they aspire to be. You have to keep in mind that it often takes around 6 months to a year for someone to be fully effective in a new role. So not many times are you given a new role, an example, or a more challenging project and told, don't worry, you're going to be incompetent for a number of months, that's fine. Most people feel they need to be performing from day one. A lot of organizations would say after about 3 months, people are really expected to be delivering and performing extremely well, even though there's lots of evidence and research to show that it takes longer. So what happens is people go back to their old way of being. So there are 3 things we've identified here that need to change. The most challenging being the values, because your personal values, because in the basis that what you value is what you focus on, you must change what you value about your individual contribution. Just take an example. If you were moving from wanting to be a project manager to a program manager, if you value getting involved, helping team leaders to really improve, work in complex problems, jump in, help them, roll your sleeves up and help, that is fantastic and admirable. That may be a personal value that makes you feel very good and comfortable and happy. But as a program manager, your job is meant to be something slightly different. Doesn't mean to say you don't, but if you carry on always carrying that out and acting in that project way, then you're never going to have to create the focus to allow you to be an effective program manager. The second then is time. Not only, so it's a shift in 2 dimensions of time. One is what you spend your time doing, obviously, how you're spending your time, being able to look at it critically and thinking, am I spending it productively? And also the horizon that you're looking over. Am I looking out a day, a week, a month or so? And typically as people go through their career, it's longer and longer the horizon that you're looking at. But you need to be thinking about that. And the last one, maybe the most straightforward, is gaining those additional skills that you require. So the 3 are very important. You've got to think about the skills, change your relationship to time, what you're doing and the horizon you're looking over, and also the value, and possibly start questioning what you value, what makes you feel good about yourself, and thinking, is that really helping me achieve my new role? So during your development journey, you may have to make some real tough transitions to allow you to make those those alterations. And the visual to the side is actually, if you can imagine the role on the bottom left moving to the top right, you move up in terms of lead level of seniority, levels of responsibility and so on. And what you need to do is find ways often of whatever that grey box is on the left, you need to find a way of shrinking down those activities and that effort down and doing it more effectively, becoming more productive. You may then have to look at certain activities you did in the past in the yellow and delegating those. And the bits in red, you may just simply have to drop and stop doing them. Back to the point about values, if that's something that you really valued and you spent 10 years getting really good at, you may find it really hard to stop doing it because it makes you feel very good. And then the green is the new skills, abilities, the space that you need to then take on the new role. So during this, all of these 4-step process, you're always thinking about what it is I'm trying to achieve, and am I achieving it? Am I making those transitions that are required as I move through? So as I mentioned, this is all in part 4 of Book Project Leadership 3rd edition. If you're interested, there's some details there. I hope this was helpful and interesting, and thank you for watching.